So today is the day that we are putting up our tree, and I went ahead and got a live Christmas tree. I don't really prefer the fake ones, so I always get a fresh live one every year. And I brought it home, and then I have to rearrange the furniture to kind of fit it into the corner area of the living room. So I'm kind of rearranging and then cleaning everything that was under the couches, of course, and in the living room. Then I just haul the tree in. This is a 7-foot tree, I believe, and it's a noble fir. And then I just get the little tree stand set up. You always want to put your tree in water within like 30 minutes or an hour at the most of having it cut at the bottom. So they do a fresh cut at the little tree purchasing place. And then when you get it home, just make sure you put it in the water to help it last, help the needles not fall off. So you do want your tree, if it's alive, to last all the way through December until Christmas morning. So I'm just going ahead and getting some ornaments and lights ready. I got my tree topper and ornaments and lights at Walgreens. Every year I just get like a few things that we need to fill in the gaps of whatever we had before this year. So the tree topper is a star tree topper, and then it's like an LED light star tree topper, and then the ornaments are just little small glass balls, and then larger glass ornaments that look kind of like light bulbs. This year I decided to do a red, green, teal, and pink color palette for the tree, for the ornaments. Usually I just do red and green and gold, but this year, I don't know, I wanted to go a little bit more vintage, so I'm doing the turquoise or teal and pink as well. Look at little Langston. He has his little lights. He's so cute. He loves to play with lights, and so I always make sure to have a light string that he can handle and play with himself, so that he's not tempted to unstring all of the lights off of the tree, because that's what interests him the most about the Christmas tree, is the lights. And after he gets done exploring them on the couch, he'll take them into a closet or into the bedroom with the light turned off. Like, he'll take them into a dark room and watch the lights shine. So he's just fascinated by light. So the tree is up with the basic ornaments and the lights, and now I have the last couple things to do, which are always the most fun: candy canes and gingerbread ornaments. So I make my own gingerbread ornaments with lots of spices, so that the Christmas tree really becomes an air freshener for the entire month of December. So you have the smell of peppermint, the smell of pine tree, the smell of gingerbread with the cloves and cinnamon and nutmeg and ginger spices. So it really just becomes like a really cozy, fresh home holidays type of fragrance in the house, and also, like a cozy visual as well. It's a very simple tree, but this is what I like to do every year. So for my gingerbread ornaments, I'm just going to make a simple gingerbread cookie dough, which I'm going to overspice for fragrance for the Christmas tree, because this is not to eat. So I'm going to dump in about just like a little over 2 cups of flour. You want these to be hard and solid so that you can cut them out and hang them as ornaments. Then I'm going to add about a teaspoon or so of baking powder, and then about half that much of baking soda. Then I'm going to dump in a generous portion of nutmeg. I like to use very generic brand spices for this particular recipe so it doesn't get too expensive. I have one McCormick seasoning here, the ginger, but a lot of these others are not as spendy. I don't add too many cloves, but do add some. So I use nutmeg, cinnamon. This is called pumpkin pie spice blend, which has allspice in it, and ginger and cinnamon and nutmeg. This has just straight ginger, and then I used a little bit of the cloves. I'm just gonna go ahead and mix that all in by hand, just blend it up with my hand, just the dry ingredients. It's kind of fun because you don't have to be super picky about the whole process because these are not going to be eaten. They are simply ornamental. So then go ahead and grab a second bowl. And in this bowl, we're going to just do the dry ingredients. So we're going to start with the sugar. I'm going to put in about a half a cup or 3/4 of a cup of sugar into that bowl. I'm going to add molasses. Now you could use brown sugar instead of doing white sugar and molasses, but I'm going to add a lot of molasses, like actually about as much as the sugar. So probably like a half a cup of molasses added to that. And this is like that good dark blackstrap molasses. I'm going to also add in an egg. And I'm going to add in about a half a cup or so of shortening. So just the vegetable shortening, Crisco. Now you can cream the shortening with the sugar. You can do all these, steps if you want to, but again, this isn't going to be eaten. So what I like to do is just do it kind of in a little quicker method and just blend up all of these wet ingredients with the sugar quickly. Just kind of beat it. I'm just beating it with a regular spoon, just like with a soup spoon type of size. Just beat it up real quickly. Doesn't have to be completely perfect. And I'm going to then add quite a bit of, this is imitation vanilla, probably like 3 teaspoons or so, and then a little splash of rum. These are just a lot of flavors that are very Christmassy and also create a very warm aroma, of course, for the Christmas ornaments. Now I bake gingerbread cookies twice in the Christmas year or season. Once for the ornaments and then also once to actually eat. And the time when I make them to eat, I don't use as much Crisco. I use a little more baking soda. Like they're just some changes to make them soft and chewy versus hard and crunchy for the cutouts. But these, of course, are the cutouts. So then you're just going to take your wet ingredients and dump them straight into the mixture of your dry ingredients. Stir it up, and you are then done. Basically, it's just a super quick recipe, and we're not doing anything in a real picky manner because we aren't going to be consuming these. So we're just kind of doing it for the texture, for the crispness, and ultimately for the fragrance and aroma. And you can already smell it while you're mixing up these spices. Once the wet ingredients hit, you can smell that amazing fragrance of the ginger, the cloves, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the molasses, and all of those spices. Now you do want this to be a pretty stiff dough, so at first it's going to seem like you can't stir all of that together. Like it's going to seem kind of stiff. It should be stiff because you do want it to be a stiff rollout. In other words, you want these to be stiff cookies, you know, stiff ornaments. You want the edges to hold up. If they don't hold up, then you can't cut out something like a star. So you should be able to grab all of that dough kind of into a ball and pat it without it being too wet. Like it shouldn't be wet and sticking to your hands. If it is too wet, just add a little more flour. And we are going to just chill this dough for like a couple hours or so. I kind of flatten it just a little bit so that it chills quicker. If it's too thick, it'll take a little bit longer to chill. So we just drop it back in the bowl and we're going to pop that in the fridge, chill it, and then we'll roll it out and cut out our ornament. I just realized I don't have room in my fridge for this big bowl. So I went ahead and just wrap that dough up in saran wrap, and then I'm going to plop that in the fridge since my fridge is pretty full. So that's another option for chilling your dough. The gingerbread dough has chilled and we are getting ready to roll it out. I'm excited to cut these into star shapes and bake them and then put them on the Christmas tree. So we're just going to plop that dough out, push it down. You want it to be floured on both sides so that it doesn't stick to the cover and also doesn't stick to the rolling pin. And then just go ahead and roll it out to a nice like 1/8 of an inch or so, kind of a thin dough. You want to get plenty of these ornaments, but you also don't want it to be so thin that they break easily. So not paper thin, but at the same time not too thick. The longer you chill the dough, the stiffer it will be to roll out. So just keep that in mind. And then we're going to take our cutter and we're just going to cut all of those into little star shapes. And you want to make sure that the star shapes are big enough to accommodate a hole in the top. So after we cut out the star shape, I'm just using a straw to cut a small hole that we can string a ribbon through. So you can kind of see the star shapes here with the little hole for the ribbon to thread through after they bake. I'm in a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes. So you're going to want to then just gather your dough up into a ball and re-roll. Same thickness, and recut, and just keep repeating that until all your dough is gone. It does not matter if your dough gets stiff because these are not cookies that need to be eaten, so you can just keep adding more flour and rolling it out until your dough is completely gone. So use up all that dough because this is again more of an air freshener for the fragrance and ornamentation for like the looks and the decoration than it is anything else. So again, cut out all those stars and then use a straw to cut out the hole for the ribbon in one of the star tips. I kind of go down a little bit into the tip just because it's, you know, gonna support better. If you cut it all the way at the top, sometimes it'll break and that ribbon won't thread well. So just keep rolling out, cutting, and baking till your dough is gone. And then once the cookies have cooled, go ahead and just thread ribbon through that little hole in the top and tie it off. And again, these are my 4 colors for my palette for the tree this year. So you can see the finished effect, and I've got the candy canes, these little mini candy canes that I unwrap and then hang on the tree. Those are always a favorite of Franklin's because he's going to go up and snack on those. He always picks them off the tree throughout December, and I have to keep replacing them. He thinks he's sneaky, but I can always tell when he took one and left a little gap. So it just creates a very warm, cozy vibe with those gingerbread ornaments, and those ornaments again match the star Christmas tree topper, kind of repeating the motif of the star throughout the tree, and then the lights all really glisten off of those ornaments, the glass ornaments, and then it kind of just creates like a homey feel with the cookies and the candy canes and the pine tree fragrance. And these trees do last all the way through January, New Year's Day. So that's when I usually take my tree down. Cannot forget Nala, the Christmas cat. She wanted to show off her little bell and Christmas bow. So I had to include her in the video. So share with me in the comments how you trim your tree. And, if you want to make these ornaments, go ahead and give it a whirl. If you want to eat the gingerbread cookies, then just don't put in quite as many spices. Add a little less Crisco, another egg, or maybe some butter instead of the Crisco. There's some different ways to kind of make it more chewy and soft as a gingerbread cookie, as opposed to hard and crisp for the ornament purpose. So I hope you enjoyed this, and more videos to come.